Welcome to European Journeys. This is the 10th stage of a series that takes us to the city of Geneva, where in fact we look at how God shaped Geneva before the Reformation. Now, if you remember, in our last stage we were in the extreme tip of a peninsula called Jonction. We will remain in that same suburb today and go to a street called Avenue de Sainte-Clotilde. And within that street, we find a Roman Catholic church also named Sainte Clotilde. It's a very modern church building built in 1965, but nevertheless the name Clotilde sends us back to the 5th century. So today we're going to explore who Clotilde was and why she is honored here in Geneva. The Belgian historian Godefroy Kurth named Clotilde the Queen Evangelist, and there's very good reasons for that. Clotilde was born in a royal family. Her father was the king of the Burgundians, Chilperic II. The Burgundians were a Germanic tribe that came from northern Poland down to Germany, Switzerland, and then moved in the Roman Empire towards eastern France at the time when the Roman Empire was collapsing. And so the Kingdom of Burgundy became the new power ruling over the region, where is also located Geneva. Now, Clotilde didn't know her father very long because he died when she was still very little. And so she was left with her mother, Carétine, and her sister, Cédéléoba, with no father. And that was a problem because at the time, inheritance didn't go to ladies. So Carétine was left with nothing. And so she had to find refuge. She had to find the protection of someone. And so she came here to Geneva because here lived the brother of Chilperic II, Godigisel, who accepted her. And so she was able to raise her daughters here in Geneva. But what is significant is that she raised her daughters in the Christian faith. Now, why is it significant? Because at the time, the Germanic tribes that had invaded, that had swept over western part of Europe, were not Christians. They were pagans or Arians. That was a Christian heresy that denied that Jesus is God. And but the western part of Europe was being Christianized towards the end of the Roman time. So now we have paganism and Arianism that come in and seem to put Christianity at stake. But Carétine and her daughters were in the Christian faith. They were not Arians or pagans. But then when Clotilde was a young adult or at the end of her childhood, a powerful king, the king of the Franks, Clovis, took notice of her and he wanted to marry her. So he sent envoys to Geneva asking for the hand of Clotilde. Now, Clotilde didn't accept so easily. She accepted, but it was certainly not an easy decision to take because obviously she was a Christian, but Clovis was a pagan. Now, Clovis was a powerful king, a rising king who was winning battles in Europe. He was occupying Belgium, the northern part of France at the time, but his kingdom would expand. And so she married Clovis and became, therefore, the queen of the Franks, and they got married in Soissons. And in fact, we would think that that probably would be an easy step for Clovis to also become a Christian, but that was not so easy indeed. It would take a while before Clovis would finally turn to Christianity, and this will happen at the battle in which he was, in fact, losing. It seemed that everything was lost, that he was really losing, probably losing his life as well. And so he prayed the God of his wife. And he asked him to give him victory in the battle. And if he did so, he would take his baptism. He would also Christianize his land. And this is what happened. He won the battle against all odds. A miracle happened. And he took his baptism and indeed enforced Christianity in his land. Now, that was significant because, in fact, he would continue to expand his territory, and wherever he would take over the lands from other Germanic tribes, he would enforce Christianity. Now, that seems to the modern ear not good. In fact, today we believe a lot in that principle of freedom of religion, but religion at the time was understood to be the foundation of a kingdom. And so we defined what's right and wrong according to religion. So the pagans had their own understanding of right and wrong, the Arians too, but the Christians had their own understanding, and that understanding came from the Word of God. And so that was significant that Clovis would now enforce Christianity in his lands. And that really happened thanks to the testimony of Clotilde. And by the way, today we talk a lot about freedom of religion, but still the understanding of right and wrong comes from an ultimate belief which is religious in nature, even if it's humanistic. So there's no real freedom of religion as we think we understand it. There's always an ultimate religion that rules over a kingdom or a republic. And so that was understood by Clovis and by all the kings of the time, that religion is the foundation of a country. So Clovis was influenced by his wife. So that's the reason why Clotilde is very important in the history of Western Europe, because through her, Christianity was redeemed. Now Christianity began to spread also among the Germanic tribes. Now there have been other means for Christianity to spread among the Germanic tribes, but that was a significant one. Now, Clotilde became a widow very young. She was not yet 40 years old. Clovis died. And she lived the end of her life, a quite difficult end of life. She lost also some children and also grandchildren. But she ought to be remembered, because probably the history of Europe would have taken another turn if she had not been there, if God had not used her to be the light to her husband, pagan king turned Christian, Clovis. I'm Cedric Placentino. See you next week for another stage of European Journeys.